before the town.
Good evening. I'd like to call the June 26, 2018 Town of Rangeley Town Council meeting to order. Roll call, Lisa.
Andy Schaefer.
Here.
Andy Key.
Here.
Tyson Hackey. Trey Roby.
Here.
Matt Dilbren.
Here.
Luke Garrett.
Present.
Rich Garner.
Here. Andy, would you mind giving the invocation, please?
Sure. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for gathering us here today to handle this important business. We thank you for the awesome abilities and that you've given us to be able to run on free will in this social experiment that we call America. With all its greatness, especially on a day like today where we get to voice our opinions, we thank you for that. We thank you for all the gifts you have blessed us with to be here. We ask that you help us make the best decisions possible for the community and make good decisions. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Peter, will you lead us in the pledge, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 5, discussion and action to approve the minutes of the June 12, 2018 meeting. Is there any comments or concerns on the minutes in the packet? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Okay, sorry. Let's say I'll make a motion to approve the June 12th, 2018 minutes.
Second.
Motion made by Andy Key, second by Rich Garner. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Petitions and public input. Ms. Michelle.
Thank you, sir. I think everybody knows me in the courtroom, in the council meeting. I don't know if you guys got a chance to look over what Lisa provided you with in regards to West Springs Hospital. But what we're doing, I don't want to just read it to you, but I'm going to read part of it to you because you look a little amiss. So I work for Mind Springs Health, and right now we're building a hospital down in Grand Junction, expanding our hospital, West Springs Hospital, to 64 psychiatric beds. Currently we have 32. These two gentlemen can vow for me that it's very difficult to get a psychiatric bed. We're the only one in Western Colorado. So we provide beds for Durango and as far north as, Walden, Granby area. So we are really in dire need of increased psychiatric beds. On average, each day there's 8 to 12 people on the wait list. In Rio Blanco County, in the last 2 days, we've had 4 crises that have resulted thus far in 0 beds. I'm still waiting to hear back tonight about a bed. And it's an extremely long process. It taxes our law enforcement and it taxes our local hospitals in regards to personnel and payer source. So what we're asking for is we're asking for a pledge from the town of Rangeley. The Rio Blanco County Commissioners are making a pledge to give some money to this project, and they've asked that the town of Meeker and the town of Rangeley do the same. We have a pledge from the town of Meeker. I do not know what that amount is. This is open until December 31st of 2018. Thus far, Eagle County's contributed $10,000, Pitkin $50,000, Garfield $50,000. Summit County is building an ATU, which is an alternative treatment unit, kind of like a crisis stabilization for somebody that's in extreme crisis, but not necessarily suicidal or homicidal. So that's the way they're helping us. In the last year or so, suicide deaths have increased significantly, and unfortunately they typically do after famous people do commit the act, and we've had that recently. Stigma and shame keeps people from seeking help, And it's estimated that 50 to 80% of Americans have considered it in their lifetime but don't talk about it due to this. I don't know how many of you are aware, but we provide 24-hour crisis services for Rangeley Meeker when we're on call. We're on call for the county. We have a crisis line that is through West Springs that is always available for people. In 2017, we provided 233 people in the county with crisis services, free of charge. So we give that service without any compensation. Rio Blanco County Commissioners used to provide monies for that, and now they've put it to something else, which we appreciate as well. In 2017, we've served over 500 people in our local offices, and that's unduplicated clients. So we're just asking for consideration for a pledge to take care of our community and our community members. Do you have any questions, or would you like me to? Yes.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
That's Senate Bill 24 that was passed this year. It's supposed to increase the availability of health care for mental health care. Does that benefit Does that benefit Mine Springs?
Well, yes, ultimately it benefits Mine Springs in that we can provide care to more people, but it also is a catch-22 because we can provide more care to people if we have the capability of providing that care. And psychiatric beds are amazingly short. In the United States, we have 6 beds per 100,000 people. In the state of Colorado, we have 1 per 100,000 people available. And then if we can't find something, if West Springs doesn't have a hospital bed, a psych bed, and it's a dire consequence, we try to get a hospital bed in Denver or the Eastern Slope, which even taxes these people more. They're our transport system, for those of you that aren't aware of that. So we're trying to look out for the total community.
Do you mind just kind of giving us a brief overview on how Mine Springs works with you guys being in Rangeley and everything down in Junction, how many of you are here, stuff like that, and then also if we do pledge money to you, is it going to the hospital in Grand Junction, or would any of that be used for you guys, guys' services here?
That could be up to your guys' discretion.
Okay.
What I am specifically asking for money for West Springs, but you can do that. As I said, Summit County pledged money specifically for Summit County to redo offices. The Rio Blanco County Commissioners did give us money to help fund a position this year because we're understaffed, as most people are. So you're asking me to explain how it works when we want to get someone in a hospital?
Just in general, how your organization works. Like I'm familiar with that you guys exist, but not like how it's set up, because like I've seen Mine Springs. I always thought it was Rangeley, and then it's behind Texas Roadhouse, I think, in Junction,
Yes.
right? Like I saw it the other day and I was like,
Yeah, so there's 10
What?
counties.
So, okay.
There's 10 counties that we serve. Mine Springs provides the most mental health and substance abuse services on the western slope of Colorado. We have sliding fee scales for people that are uninsured, and that can be as low as $2 a session. We have psychiatric via televideo, which is exceptional given that we're in Rangeley. People don't have to travel. We have 20-plus psychiatrists. We have therapists that we use via televideo in Craig and Estes Park, actually one that works out of her home, and Meeker. I see people in Meeker in face-to-face and televideo. So it's really quite a complete project. We do monitored UAs, we provide family, individual, substance abuse, mental health, children. I mean, there's almost nothing we don't do. We don't work with sexual perpetrators, and we don't offer domestic violence, which is a problem. In Rangeley, people have to travel to Craig, but it takes a lot to get licensed for that as well.
thank you.
Yeah. Any other
Michelle, has the new hospital broke ground yet?
Is it what?
Has it broke ground?
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's well into building. I should have brought pictures. If you're interested, I'll get it.
Where is it located at?
Right behind Texas Roadhouse.
Oh, right
It's going to
next
be
to
an
the facility.
addition to what we already have. And one thing I should mention, it is on this sheet, is that we're especially opening up to children and adolescents because there's been a drastic increase to treat our children. So the children are separated from adults as it should be, but there's been more need for children. Child care.
You say that you had, what, 500 patients or people that admitted in how long? A year?
No, okay, 500 clients.
Yeah.
So we have over 500 that we serve in Rangeley and Meeker. So some of those people are served on a weekly basis, some on a more than weekly basis, some monthly. We provide home. We go to people's homes that can't get to us or that it's deemed safer.
And you mentioned that you charge on a sliding scale depending on their income. What is the percentage of those that actually have insurance and are covered? Do you have any
I could get that for you.
information that kind of gives us an idea how much do you receive, or is it mostly just, given?
Most of our dollars where we get them Medicaid. So Medicaid for mental health is being cut 11%. So how Medicaid works, it's a capitated amount, so we get X amount of dollars per year, and it doesn't matter if we see 50 or 500, that's what we get. So serving more, Peter asked about that, serving more actually stretches that a little bit thinner. So that's especially going to impact us this year. Mm-hmm.
So my thoughts, I don't want to speak for everybody, but my thoughts would be maybe we invite Michelle back and sit down and talk a little more in depth on what we want to do as the budget cycle comes up. See what everybody else thinks on that.
What was your timeline?
December 31st.
And how much were you asking, or are you just leaving that open?
I'm leaving that open.
I mean, is there something from the county, Meeker, and Rangeley that there was a goal?
Well, I would say our goals, as high as we want to set it. I haven't been given that. I can inquire and ask and report back to you, gentlemen. Yeah. Got a buzz going on.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
So are you wanting to wait till 2019? Or what do you?
She's just asking for a pledge by 2018, December 31st of 18. So if we get together and work on that, we can get together a pledge.
Okay.
And see what we want to do.
All right.
That sounds okay.
I'd just like to say that Michelle, she is an extraordinary individual. Everything she does, we have diligently worked with the juvenile. She has given countless hours that she probably doesn't even count for. And we've come to conclusions on a lot of things. This organization, Mind Springs, their director, we had people that were not admitted because they did not meet the criteria. When I complained to that lady, Sharon, she said, that'll never happen again. Here's my number, and it never happened again. I'm in Walmart on Saturday. They're returning a call from Thursday saying, my boss wanted me to get back with you. This is what we did, this is what we're doing, and this is how we're going to rectify the problem. That's on a Saturday. That says a lot about an organization such as Mind Springs. And the money that we spend in overtime, that if you guys donate, because that is the biggest thing. We're setting up at the hospital, babysitting an individual, and that's costing us overtime. So that offset, whatever you guys determine, can actually will benefit that also. That'll help reduce our overtime because it's more quickly to get down there and get somebody dropped off instead of, we've set up there for 10 hours sometimes, waiting for the bed to become open. So just some consideration points, and I just wanted to mention that she does an excellent job also, which I think everybody's aware of.
Is there any other petitions and public input? Anthony?
Good evening, council. I came here tonight to talk about the fire ban that's going to be going in effect on Friday at 8 o'clock in the morning. When I say we, the Upper Colorado River, the BLM, your mayor / fire chief, our fire chief on the east end of the county, we participate in calls every Tuesday, and we evaluate the conditions, the fire conditions, what's going on. And the indices that Rio Blanco County considers are like 1,000-hour moisture fuels, 3-day mean energy release, ERC, what they're called, live fuel moisture, fires that are impacting available resources, drought indicators, adverse weather. We are almost above every one of those. About the only one that's not impacting is we thankfully do not have a fire, and we don't have resources out fighting a fire. I like to try to hold off on fire bans as long as we can and try to get past the 4th of July. But this year, compared to last year, we are much drier. And after consultation with everybody, we were all in agreement that we were going to go into fire restrictions. This put some people like the 4-H club in Meeker raising money selling fireworks. I'm sorry, and Rangeley? Okay. So that's a fundraiser. But this fire ban is going to restrict use of fireworks. Also, the fire display that was going to be out by the lake, that's going to be canceled as well. But we all talked about these, and we all came to the conclusion that where we are at with the weather today overrides the safety of not having the safety in place of a fire ban. So we're going to do that Friday at 8 o'clock. Now, the town of Meeker has and they passed an ordinance in 2012 that allowed them to, when the county goes into a fire ban, they automatically accept that fire ban. But they did add a little waiver in there that it would be up to the fire chief if they were going to do the fireworks show, but they had to have apparatus on scene to fight a fire. So I talked with the fire chief today, and he is leaning towards not having a fireworks show, but that's not set in stone yet either. That he'll make that final decision. Talked with Andy and Tim Weber today, and they both agreed that they were not going to do the fireworks show here in Rangeley. So, but where we're at, I think it's time we do this fire ban. It will be posted tomorrow. What we end up exactly coming with. So, Jan, you'll be able to get those.
Is it okay with you guys if I ask a question?
You bet.
So are you guys planning on beefing up enforcement or prosecution of people that are out there doing it?
Well, we can only beef up with what we already have, which is what we have.
Okay.
I think it's going to be kind of a blessing in disguise. I know in Meeker, they did not receive their shipment of fireworks to sell. So there's not a lot of fireworks out there. So we're not going to be having that problem as much as if they had been selling for 2 weeks and we have all these fireworks. So, there's a lot of people that have approached me. It's like, why haven't you put the fire ban in place? And it's like, we're not quite there yet. But the numbers that we went over today put us well above, and we made the decision that that's what we're going to do. No. So, any other questions on the fire ban? The other thing I want to talk about tonight is, and I'm sure you're all aware of, you're going to be one officer short. Max has accepted employment with us, and I just want to put it on the record because I told Peter when he hired Max that I would not recruit him, and I did not. Max came to us, so I kept my word on that.
So you have price to it? No, I'm just.
I'm not saying you can't try and recruit my guys. That's fine too, but I just want to make sure that this was on the record, and that's the way it came down.
This wouldn't be the first time they've been moved back and forth to us.
Yeah.
I got a question, Anthony. For business, I mean, the fire ban, because we do a lot of welding in the field and what have you on BLM property. I don't know if you can speak for BLM, I know we always have, a plan in place for fighting fires and monitoring things, but, I mean, does that affect us as well?
It does. I can read you exactly what our ban says when it deals with welding. And if you don't mind, I'm going to quote it. Welding or operating acetylene or other torch with open flame, except within an area that is barren or cleared of all flammable materials, at least 10 feet on all sides from the equipment. That's the county fire ban. And if you give me a second, I can read you the BLM. I think BLM is a
It's
little
same
stricter.
thing, yeah.
I think BLM's the same.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I guess what because I'd read it, but I was just wanting to make sure that it applies to private and business as
Yeah.
well. Okay, thank you.
And if you don't mind, I'd like to jump on the bandwagon with Michelle. This woman's an angel. All the things that she's done for this entire county, not only Rangeley, but Meeker. She makes Mine Springs up here. And this woman needs to be given the Citizen of the Year award. But she's awesome. I don't know what we would do without her.
So Anthony, Moffett County, if I remember right, they went into one also.
Yes.
Right? They're into one. Utah's into one too, so I don't think it's something abnormal for
Mesa,
our county to go.
Garfield, Eagle route has already been in fire restrictions. We were trying to hold off as long as we could, but like I said, the indices were just too high, too much of a risk.
So a few of the things on a different note, as far as the fireworks out at the lake, we've decided that it's too much of a liability for the town to be selfish or the rec center and the fire department to be selfish to go out and light something off and possibly get a fire that's back on the east side of the lake. So we're holding all the fireworks we have now and looking towards Labor Day as the next event. If the weather gets better by then. We were trying to hold off for a little bit because we thought that there might be some rain in the forecast, and there's nothing in the forecast, and it's all high temperatures. So that's kind of where we're at as far as the fire department. The other part is we're also talking about putting in an emergency ordinance, and you guys all have this emergency ordinance 672 in front of you. And this was adopted back, as ironic as it might be, on June 26th of 2012, which is the same night. So looking through that, we thought to start off with, we were going to have to enact another emergency ordinance to fall in with the county and the BLM. But if you look in section 9, the last sentence, it says, the board desires that for future reference, the town will concurrently adhere to any future fire bans set or suspended by Rio Blanco County, and the town will be under such designation as Rio Blanco County fire ban status is currently in effect. So as far as us having to go through and adopt an emergency ordinance, I think we can opt out of that and refer to this emergency ordinance 672 adopted in 2012. And there's some guidelines to go by as far as that we can post, and we will start posting those, I guess, tomorrow on Facebook. Have it in the paper, on our website. I know Tim's going to post it that they're not having the fireworks, and then I'll also put it on the fire department's Facebook page.
Can I get a copy of the ordinance?
You bet.
And this begins 8 o'clock Friday morning, right?
8 o'clock on Friday morning. And the sheriff's one is floating around somewhere also, Jim.
It's also on there.
Any questions on any of that?
I guess same question for you then, for Peter, or maybe Vinny, as I pose to Anthony. Any thoughts on how you're gonna monitor that?
So in the ordinance, it says on section 7, it's kind of a broad deal. It says ordinance shall be enforced by the Rangeley Police Department and it shall have the authority to order any person to immediately cease any violations of this ordinance. This authority shall include, but not limited to, the right to issue a summons and the right to take such person or persons into temporary custody. And that's a great question, Chief. How are we going to move forward with this? Is there,
Well, generally, I think it's gonna be calls from the citizens complaining about somebody with that saying, hey, these guys got a fire or something. We'll probably just do the warning unless it's, to the extent that we think we need to issue a summons for it, and then we'll do that. As far as taking anybody to jail, if I would say if they probably started a fire and it goes out into the county and it's a recklessness, then yeah, they will probably be taken to jail for that offense.
with this in place like this, is there such as arson? Does that start falling into place on this? Since it's enacted?
Yeah.
Like starting wildland, prairie fire, or something like that.
That's
Statutes were.
It's 1813-109, and that is firing a wildfire. But there's a subsection in there that talks about violating any rules or, I forget the exact verbiage, but basically, like, if you violate a fire ban, you can charge under that. That goes everything from a misdemeanor to a class 6 felony.
Last time we did this, we had calls that were primarily around, can I use my barbecue? Can I light up my fire pit? We did have some fireworks that were set off at different parts of town that had to be reined in a little bit. But beyond that, we had pretty good compliance, I think, in 2012. So I'm expecting it might be similar this time around.
Yeah, we've been over this several times over the last 8-9 years.
So I guess my question is, because is barbecuing allowed? Charcoal, I mean, that would probably be the worst or most dangerous, as opposed to gas or something like that, but it is allowed. A charcoal barbecue pit.
Well, charcoal might be.
I see it's wood burning, stuff like that. It talks about open stuff. I mean, I'm just looking for some clarification so I can pass it on to those that.
Here's under my ordinance, it says actions permitted. Fires constructed permanently installed fire pits or fire grates within developed recreation sites are permitted, but that does not include constructed rock fire rings. So if you go out and you stack a bunch of rocks, that's not considered a fire ring. Mechanical stoves and appliances fueled by bottled or liquid gas, which allow the operator to control or extinguish the flame with a valve, are permitted. The charcoal one is not.
That's what about on private property? I think the BLM restriction doesn't apply to private residents.
That's right, and that's where this ordinance comes in on private property.
So charcoal grilling won't be allowed.
Correct.
Just gas grilling. Okay. I mean, that's important because a lot of people will be doing that for the 4th of July.
Yeah.
Well, frankly, that's not something we really enforced last time.
Again, like Vince said, probably if you're responsible for setting a fire, then you'll be held accountable. Yeah.
Yeah, you'll be on the hook for it.
So Anthony, one of the questions is, number one, building, maintaining, and attending or using a campfire except within a developed recreation site or improvement site. So saying that the lake would be private property and they have fire pits out there.
Those are fine.
Okay.
So if you have a fire pit, but it's not a rock one, you have a steel ring or a metal ring, that is considered okay?
Yes.
Okay.
So Matt and Art,
In a developed recreational site.
Okay.
So out in the middle of BLM or something,
Yeah.
that doesn't work.
If you have a private and you have a developed spot for it and a steel ring around it, you're okay.
Yes.
So our exemptions are in section 6, Matt. The town's exemptions.
I also see that it talks about vehicles without a flame arrestor, so that'll affect side-by-sides that have modified exhaust and stuff like that.
They don't have a spark plug.
But I think that we need to, when you tell the people if there's restrictions, like Andy was just saying, charcoal grilled fires are actually allowed within the town of Rangeley. Because the exception is 6, so should not be in violation of section 4. And fire containing liquid fueled or gas fueled stoves, fireplaces with a building, charcoal fires and chimneys enclosed. Provided adequate fire suppression.
And the county ordinance does not rule city ordinance. You guys set the city ordinance.
So within the city limits, it would be okay. Out in the county, it would not be okay. Okay.
Okay. As long as we can explain this to everybody.
Dispatch will be busy.
So maybe on that note, we highlight some of these areas on our pages.
Okay.
Do you care if we post the sheriff's also? Any other questions on that? We don't have any changes to the agenda. Public hearings, none. Committee and board meetings. We had the CIRSA come in last on the 14th, and then the talk with Meeker Town Council. I thought that was very good and look forward to talking with them again. Does anybody have anything that they want to talk about? Has anything transpired from our meeting, Peter?
Yeah, we had a meeting with the county commissioners yesterday in a work session to talk about the asbestos abatement discussion that came up during our joint meeting, and whether they would want to think about participating in providing a list of properties so that we could pursue quotes from asbestos abatement contractors and maybe look at a volume discount for the work that we're doing if we had 15, 20 properties rather than soliciting for one. The commissioners were interested in us pursuing that initially, and they might consider coming on board, but no commitments. We also talked about the IBC 2015 International Building Code and whether they were interested in adopting 2015 as well as, and Meeker participated in that discussion. Scott Mazaris was there. Meeker's actually pretty interested in pursuing this along with Rangeley and the county. And so I think we're still kind of waiting, though, for the county attorney to come up with the IGA for the consolidation of the building department and then move from there. But I think that's a real potential for the county in terms of all entities participating.
What about a sense of urgency on our part? I mean, it sounds like the county attorney is kind of dragging his feet. Is there? I know it's a long process, but is there something that we can bring up to the commissioners, our sense of urgency for something like this?
Well, the county building inspector is providing services to us in the interim, but I mean, I've called and talked to the commissioners about it, and I'm getting the same information that you are regarding. I think they have to put the pressure on the situation if we're going to see something happen.
Okay.
In the interim, they're providing support to us, so we don't have any shortfall that I know of at this point.
Okay. I'll reach out to some of the commissioners.
Okay.
Any more on the community or committee and board meetings? Okay, item 10, council reports from council. Anybody have anything they want to bring up on recent events? Very good. Supervisory report.
I'm going to do that one for Jeff tonight. Just a quick Tanglewood update. So we expect a couple more weeks for the water line replacement to totally install the main. After that, the sidewalks will be removed and service connections made. Once gas, water, and electricity, and possibly one manhole that is of some concern at this point. Then construction starts, reconstruction of the road probably starts around August 1st. So we're looking at completion by the end of August, early September. We're implementing dust control, and I've asked our folks if we've had any complaints. None that relate to dust control or the conditions over there, which are not good. I mean, the road is tore up and it's kind of bumpy going across there. And so far, I think the residents are being pretty patient with everything. And we're trying to respond to any issues that they have when they bring it up to the folks working over there. But anyway, I think that's our timeline's 10 to 12 weeks, so that's going to push us right to the edge of that to finish. We started in earnest probably 2.5 weeks ago with the deconstruction. Should I just go on through my report?
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. Algae problem. We're experiencing a greater algae problem at the river intake than we've seen in the past. Crews are having to clean the intakes about every 8 hours at this point. The type of algae has been identified by the Conservation District, and we're looking to have a meeting with Alden and our folks later this week to talk about the problem. I think the Conservation District is looking at proposing a possible flushing of the river just below the dam, maybe to alleviate some of that problem, but I guess we'll have that discussion and see where they're at on that. Not sure that that's even going to be possible in terms of where FERC might be on that issue. Officer Becker has been announced. Bess, do you have any other input on that? Okay.
Talk to me on Fridays and I don't work for the sheriff's office.
So he'll be departing Rangeley PD on July 11th, and we wish him luck. Meeting with the commissioners, representatives, I talked about that already. We did get one piece in that meeting I didn't mention earlier. Commissioner Woodruff provided me with the proposal for asbestos disposal at the facility and what the guidelines that they're looking at might be. The cost to dispose of a mobile home, they're looking at $300 a piece, as compared to Mesa County, for instance, for a 12 by 60 home is $450 for disposal of a unit. Now this does not include asbestos abatement. They're also looking at a fee of $58 a ton for asbestos-laden material, friable or non-friable. Now, from what we've seen, that's probably a tremendous improvement. I think we would end up paying roughly double at any other facility. So there's going to be a real benefit there, and so the county has really come through, I think, in terms of trying to pull this together. They're not quite there. Also, their insurance rates, which were initially discussed when we started this whole process, they thought they might have an additional $40,000 of liability insurance for accepting that friable material, and it looks like there will be no additional insurance increases to the county. So that's a real positive, and they're not quite there. I think there's about $300,000 that they've identified. Anthony might know about this, but there's $300,000 cost in developing the new cell, I think, and they may have funding, identified funding for that.
That's not my bailiwick, I don't know.
Anyway, it sounds pretty positive in terms of disposal. You're not in charge of that department yet. Okay. Did I send everyone the amicus brief that was put together for the Raise the Bar? We're a friend of the court listed in the brief that just came out late last week, and so I've got a copy of it here if you're interested, but basically taking the position that Amendment 71 we support, and we don't think it's a problem, and it actually improves the benefit for rural areas in terms of representation. That constitutional amendments to our Colorado Constitution can't as easily be implemented without support from 2% of the voters in all 35 Senate districts. So that's a good thing, and we support that, and we hope it fails in the appeal process. The new Cleary building, I'll just give you a quick, is almost complete. We've got ceiling and insulation to get installed, and that's a done deal out there. The doors, we have a couple of adjustments with the doors. So I was at CML last week for a couple of days, and we had a legislative update. Andy, you already might be up on most of these bills, but 1314 was a wildfire drone bill. I don't know if you covered that one, but it looks like in terms of flying your drone, if you are a licensed drone pilot and you want to take your drone out and take pictures of a wildfire, and it impacts an aircraft that's providing fire suppression, or it falls and hits a firefighter or something like that, you will have potential jail time, and it is considered a Class 2 misdemeanor, but it's got a fairly hefty fine associated with it, and so I thought that was an interesting bill. Looks like legislation also for the DTR trunk radio, gaps in the system. I don't know if we have any gaps currently in the system.
We have a big one between Highway 64, about mile marker 47 to dang near to almost the reservoir. It's a real bad spot. But with the broadband system, county installed a tower on Steckman, and we're working with the state right now, and they're going to we're going to supply the infrastructure, the tower, the generator, electricity, and they are going to supply the microwave and the radios. And so they're going to beef that up. And I think that's where that money's coming. The state is going to use money for that.
Okay, because there's apparently grants through this bill for that, exactly that purpose. Also, House Bill 1353, we've talked about this defense bill. We have to provide counsel for certain defendants if they have potential of jail time or that sort of thing. And apparently they've put together a massive fund of $1.85 million for the entire state to provide defense counsel if you need a grant for that sort of thing. So, but I don't think we're ever going to fall into that because we're generally not dealing with those kinds of cases in municipal court, but that did come up. I mentioned Senate Bill 24. Michelle was up talking about increasing access to behavioral health care providers. So, and 656, which is Senate Bill 656 will affect us positively. They reauthorize the lottery fund disbursements for GOCO and the Conservation Trust Fund for another 25 years. So we'll continue to get funding from those sources. Let's see, I was thinking this might be beneficial to Rich. They're going to have new handicap parking placards coming out. They're going to be orange in color instead of blue. So. Senate Bill 144 was Idaho stops. I don't know if you heard about this, the cyclists. I think you might have covered this one time, Andy. But a stop sign is now considered a yield sign for cyclists in certain circumstances. There were several new liquor bills. The one that caught my attention was Senate Bill 173, the Cork and Gill bill. So if you're sitting in a restaurant, you get a partial empty bottle of wine, you'll be able to cork that and take it with you. So I'd want to check that out before you actually do it, though. I don't know if you've heard about that one. The Cork and Go bill, that was an interesting one. So I attended a few URA and DDA, Downtown District authorities, the implementation of a DDA, which is different than what we have. We have the RDA, which is a URA, and we could implement a DDA for the core downtown, and we would have the DDA, once appointed by the town council, would have the authority to levy up to 5 mills specifically for the downtown authority. So, and if that were to happen here, 5 mills would generate maybe $80,000 for the purpose of downtown improvement if we formed a DDA. So, and a lot of medical marijuana bills that I won't go into since we have a moratorium on that. So, any things that you're interested in that I didn't cover tonight or updates?
Have we been fogging already for mosquitoes?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
Yeah. In
And then
fact, we've had one complaint that I've received so far in the Elks Park area, and so we trained John Templeton on mosquito abatement, and he's been fogging. He should have been up at the golf course already in the parks. So, but you probably noticed that we have an aerial spraying coming up in the packet.
Yep.
So,
Peter,
yeah,
which police officer is leaving here?
Max Becker. Yeah.
Peter, what's the operating cost of the fogger that goes around town? Any idea what we're paying for chemical for that thing for a year?
You know, we have enough bulk chemical in store that'll last us for the next 2 to 3 years. I'd have to look into that. And I don't know that I could break that down. I'm not sure how much of that each year that we use from the stockpile that we have. It depends on the year, of course, but this year, as dry as it is, we could have a different experience than we've had in previous years when it's wetter.
And what's the chemical? Is it chemical on that different than what the aerial spray is?
We've used both. We have malathion and we use Control 3030. You kind of rotate those just to improve effectiveness because they become somewhat immune to one or the other if you use the same chemical all the time.
That'd be interesting to see what the chemical costs the town.
Okay, I'll look into it. It's a little pricey, but I think we purchased most of our chemical last year. I think we had $6,000 to $7,000 in the cost. So I'm told we have enough for the next 2 to 3 years. So we're in that $2,000 to $3,000 a year range for mosquito abatement, not including the equipment and the man and the labor. But I'll firm that up.
Anything else for Peter? Item 13, old business, IGH with the building development and inspector, I think we covered that. Did you have anything else, Peter?
No.
New business, item 14, discussion and action to approve the 2017 audited financial statements as presented by Colorado CPA Services. Marlo, welcome.
Thank you. I think I know everybody. I'm going to do a quick introduction for the new council members. My name is Marlo Coates. I'm the owner of Colorado CPA Services. We did your financial audit for the town this year, for 2017 year end. I'll kind of highlight some areas. These are numbers you should be pretty familiar with. We don't change a whole lot to them. We get them to, we do adjustments to get them to the basis that the state wants to see them at. So a lot of the journal entries that you've seen, and that I'll kind of go over, have to do with getting it to that GAAP basis. You guys are concerned mostly with budgeting basis, and so that's to get it to how the state wants to see it. So when you have somebody do your financial audit, it is basically for the 2-page report that's in the very front of your binder. What we gave the town is an unmodified opinion, meaning we didn't find anything materially wrong with your financial statements. What we did find wrong, we were corrected, and everybody was in agreement that those items should be corrected. And so that's basically what that first report says. The next part of the financial statements is called the Management Discussion and Analysis. It's a quick overview of what funds make up the town, a little bit of what happened throughout the town as far as financially, what different types of funds you have, and then comparisons to prior year information. And that goes from page 3 through 8. The actual number of financial statements start on page 12. The first statement is called the Statement of Net Position. Essentially, you have two types of fund. They're either called governmental types or business types activities. The only business types you have are your utilities. So your water, wastewater, and gas are all considered by business type. Everything else falls under the governmental side of that. This is presented on the full accrual basis, meaning anything that the town owes or owns would be presented on here. So you have your capital assets, net of depreciation, and then long-term liabilities are listed on there as well. The next statement is the Statement of Activities. It's kind of a different approach than most people are used to. You kind of have your expenses right out front, and then different program revenues where your money is coming from for a particular activity, and then your general revenues, which are like your sales tax and property taxes, which you can use for any activity you see fit. And here at the bottom of page 14, you can see that the governmental activities increased its net position by $277,000, but the business types had decreased it by $334,000. Page 15 is your balance sheet just for your governmental funds. So you have two different categories that your funds could fall into. They're either called a major governmental fund or a non-major. You only have the one major governmental fund, which is your general fund, and then all your other governmental funds fall under that other governmental. And then in the back is more detail. Each individual fund, you can look in the back, and that'll give you more detail on what happened with those ones. This is presented on the modified accrual basis, which means it's more your current items. So you're not going to see your depreciated assets on here. Your long-term liabilities won't be on here. What you do see is accounts payable. So those are anticipated to be paid off shortly after year end. So that's that presentation. Page 16 shows you how we kind of round up and get to the full accrual basis and which items affect that. Page 17 is the combined statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance for your governmental funds. More traditional approach here with your revenues at top and then your expenditures. Here you can see your general fund increased by about $32,000, and all your other governmental funds increased about $25,000 for the year. I'm sorry, not dollars, but fund balance. 18 shows you again the differences between how we kind of can switch back and forth between your full accrual and then the modified accrual. Page 19 and 20 is your statement of net position for your proprietary funds. These again are your utility funds, gas, wastewater, and water. These are presented in the same format as the first financial statements. They're going to be on the full accrual basis. Page 21 and 22 are your statement of revenues and expenses and changes in net position for these funds. Here you can see that all three of your funds actually decreased its net position for the whole year. Page 23 and 24 is your cash flows for these enterprise funds. Kind of gives you a summary as far as where your money is coming from, or coming to supply these funds, and where your money is going to, whether it's personnel or goods and services, purchasing of equipment, those kinds of things. Page 25, you do have one fiduciary fund, which is the Foundation for Public Giving. So that's on page 25 and 26. Here you can see on 26 that the change in net position was down by $900 or so for that. Page 29 is where the notes to the financial statements start. Note 1 explains how the town is governed. You're an elected council, the different types of funds you have, how taxes are collected, the budgeting process, what's considered a capital or fixed asset. So that's basically note 1. Note 3 on page 33 is your cash and investment note. Being a governmental entity, there's certain things that you can invest in. So we just go through and make sure that you haven't done anything that you can't do, and so you guys are perfectly fine on your investments and where your cash is. We'll skip over to note 5, your property tax notes. The first part of it is what was levied and then what was actually collected for 17. Most of our districts in the area don't have any issues collecting the property taxes that are levied. As you can see, you collected 99.7% of those. And then the second half shows what was levied for the upcoming year, and again, no anticipated decrease as far as collection percentage on that. Changes in your capital assets is note 6. Again, divided up between your two different type of activities, your governmental and business type. Note 7 is your change in long-term debt. Shows you what you had as far as beginning balances, if you had any additions and reductions in those notes, long-term liabilities. Note 10 is your defined contribution plans for your employees. You kind of have two different levels. If you're a police officer, you get this level, and all other employees get another level. As far as the town's concerned, everything was good as far as contributions. They contributed what you were supposed to contribute, as well as the employees did. Note 12 is your Tabor reserve note. Because of Tabor, there's a fund balance, a minimum fund balance you have to keep, which in this case is just over $104,000. So no issues with keeping that balance in your general fund is usually where it's kept. And kind of skip the rest of those other notes. Page 45 is your general fund budget comparison. Here you can see that you actually received more revenues than you budgeted, and your expenses were less than budgeted as well. So kudos to you guys for keeping that there. The next section, on 49 and 50, again, I had mentioned earlier there's kind of two different categories your funds can fall in, whether major or non-major. So this makes up all your non-major. You can see you have Conservation Trust Fund, Housing Authority, Housing Assistance, RDA, and RDC are all considered non-major governmental. And there's certain levels of revenues and expenses. It has to be a percentage in order to be considered major. So based on those formulas that we do, they're considered non-major. So the first part is the balance sheet, and the second page, or second part, 51 and 52, is your revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. Here you can see the Conservation, the Housing Authority, and Housing Assistant all increased their fund balance, and the RDA and RDC decreased their fund balance for the year. Then we jump into budget comparisons for all your additional funds that are not your general fund, your major governmental funds. So all your utilities funds, gas funds, wastewater, all those are on the next couple of pages. Just one highlight that we did come across that we did mention in our notes was that one of your funds, the public giving fund, you actually did have disbursements of more than what you budgeted by $760. So just to let you know, that was the only fund we had an issue with as far as going over budgeted expenditures. And the last part of that is a highway finance report. We submit this into the state, and it's just another piece of the puzzle that they think the public wants to know, so we throw that in there for the audit. In the back of the board and Peter's financial statements are two letters. The first letter is kind of just we have to make sure the council is aware that not all of your accounting functions are segregated as well as a perfect accounting department would be. You know, you'd like to have one person doing accounts payable, one person doing payroll, you know, just all these segregations. We know it's not cost effective for you guys to do that, but we do have to make you aware that that is kind of an issue. So we encourage the councils to ask their questions, look over your financials, consult us if you have questions, you know. So that's what that first letter says. The second letter just kind of highlights some of the items within the financial statements. One major estimate we have to do, for instance, is fixed asset lives when we do depreciation. We don't know how something's really going to last before it needs major repair. So that's an estimate we have to make just for depreciation calculations. And then on the back of that letter are actually the journal entries that we did post. Again, most of those have to do with getting them back to the basis that the state wants to see. As far as budgeting and stuff, there wasn't too many adjustments for that purpose. So that's my little spiel. So if you guys have questions now or later, just please let me know.
Yeah, go ahead.
Marla, we've talked about this before, but the Housing Assistance Fund, which was created back when Western Fuels was developing the PUD up on Mesa to help fund the development up there. That purpose is, in essence, not there any longer. And that's a restricted balance of almost $900,000. Since the purpose has been fulfilled, can that restriction be realigned somehow? Or is that a legal question? I know we've talked about this before.
Yeah, and I did try to do some research as far as we were trying to find original documents as to how it was set up and if it, after the project was done, what was to happen with those funds, and unfortunately we couldn't find anything. So I would think it's probably more of a legal question as to where those funds could go, especially if we can't find any. And I don't know if we could even get a hold of whoever owns Western Fuels now and see what. So if somebody could come up with something, but I couldn't find anything in our documents of theirs.
Those early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else have any questions for Marlo at this time?
I'll make a motion to approve the 2017 audited financial statement as presented by Colorado CPA Services.
Second. Motion's made by Andy, second by Trey. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item B, discussion and action to approve the May 2018 financial summary.
wastewater fund still has significant reimbursements to receive yet. They're close to 100,000. I think they're 80 to 100,000. I don't recall the exact number. So that'll put us back on target with wastewater.
Any other questions?
I'll make the motion to approve the financial statement.
Second.
Motion was made by Trey, second by Matt. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Informational items. One, on item D, I would say that the packet actually says, on top of the board packet says 6 o'clock, and we've changed that to 6:30, trying to work it out so everybody can make it. And then I think Peter sent out a kind of an agenda, what we were looking at, going over.
Right.
That'll be here.
Council chambers.
Are there any questions on any of that? Senior picnic, are you still looking for volunteers on that?
I think that we've got it covered. We have the sheriff's department, the police department, brings the trash, they have to come and help, but any of the council's welcome to attend it.
Is that the park?
Yes, it is.
Got any good county roadkill this year?
What about any hill beef?
We found the beef somewhere.
Cripple cowboy beef?
Sure, there's some buffalo roaming around out there.
Yeah.
I haven't either. Looks like we still have the vacancies and item 16 and the scheduled announcements on 17. Anybody else have anything to bring before the council? Luke? Got anything? We'll be adjourned at 8:08.